Happy to report, Sarma Melngailis is doing well and paying off her debts to those she wronged. While many feel that she was foolishly in love and made a host of pathetic mistakes, others don't trust her and still see her as the antagonist along with her former lover, Anthony Strangis. Here's all the details you need to know about what went down and how Sarma Melngailis is doing today, so you can be the judge. To figure out where Sarma is today and what's her state of mind, we must figure out if Sarma Melngailis is truly guilty. Well, the Bad Vegan star refuted some of the show's misconceptions and explained that she did actually pay out her victimized former employees with the cash from her new Netflix 4-episode docuseries called Bad Vegan: Fame, Fraud, Fugitives. From her blog and some interviews, we can assemble pieces of the puzzle to solve this riddle. First, we'll start with the actions of Sarma Melngailis, as she states that the docuseries was not entirely accurate. The first in-depth response from Sarma about the docuseries was published on her website in March. Melngailis wrote a confessional with the main thesis being her way to clear up the untruths that were displayed in the documentary. She wrote, "I also agreed to do this documentary because I hope people can learn something valuable from my story. As anyone who's been through anything shitty knows, having your experience help others lessens the shittiness. I only finally saw Bad Vegan 12 days ago. The story is so weird and complicated, even to me, that it seemed inevitable that the documentary would get some things wrong, and I worried about this. I did not participate in how the story was told beyond my interviews and the source materials I contributed. I also worried about how my family would feel about it." She continued by saying, "The ending of Bad Vegan is disturbingly misleading. I am not in touch with Anthony Strangis. I didn't want to marry him, and that part of the story was inaccurately condensed." The former restaurateur behind the celebrity hotspot Pure Food and Wine in Manhattan became a fugitive after stealing about $2 million from investors and colleagues. From there, she went on the run with her employee-turned-husband, Strangis. But in her letter to the public on her website, she vowed that she has already compensated those she wronged. She explained how she recompensated the ones she'd done wrong by stating and asking others to confirm. "In exchange for the source materials and images I contributed to the documentary, the producers paid an attorney on my behalf who then, on the same day, which happened to be the day NYC restaurants were first shut down due to the pandemic in 2020, wired full payment directly to the attorney representing the employees." Melngailis continued by stating, "It's standard practice, to say nothing of journalistic integrity, that subjects do not get paid for participation in documentaries, at least not the reputable ones." She then added, "In my case, however, and at my insistence, the producers made an exception so that I could pay the total amount my former employees were owed, amounts that occurred after my disappearance in 2015. All of the harm and the many debts resulting from my downfall, this portion weighed heaviest." Melngailis, who's currently living in Harlem, began her disclosure first by opening up about how she met Strangis, who was then actually calling himself Shane Fox. Shane Fox, or Strangis, was allegedly buddies with Alec Baldwin on Twitter. Story has it that Baldwin met his wife Hilaria at Pure, and Melngailis wrote on a 2010 blog post that she was in love with the actor, but did not want a relationship. However, she was completely enthralled by Strangis. This infatuation, or obsession, turned out to be very unhealthy or even toxic. Melngailis admitted that Strangis, who was hired as a manager at Pure in 2013, had such a hold on her that she believed that he could make her beloved pet dog Leon immortal if she passed her tests and joined his secret society. The tests usually required her to wire him whatever amount of money he requested, even if it meant that she'd be unable to pay her bills, her investors, and even her restaurant staff. Since she was foolish enough to do such things, people question her sanity and rule out her simply being a fool for love. By 2014 and 2015, she developed a reputation for stiffing her employees on their salary. Soon after, Melngailis and Strangis disappeared. The following year, the two were arrested in May 2016 after ordering a non-vegan Domino's pizza to their hideout at a Tennessee motel room. Melngailis pleaded guilty to charges of grand larceny, criminal tax fraud, and a scheme to defraud investors in exchange for 5 years of probation and 4 months in jail, which she served at Rikers in the summer of 2017. Strangis went on to plead guilty to 4 counts of grand larceny in the 4th degree and was sentenced to 1 year in jail and 5 years of probation. On top of that, he had to pay $840,000 in restitution to investors. But since he couldn't afford his bail, he didn't have the funds to pay the restitution, and that's why he was forced to spend a year in prison. Regarding the Netflix docuseries, when trying to clarify some of the realities of the whole ordeal, Melngailis argues that parts of her story have been inaccurate, claiming, "I didn't flee in 2015, nor was I on the lam, at least not to my knowledge. I didn't leave voluntarily. I didn't know what funds Anthony had at the time, and I no longer had access to my electronic devices and email/text accounts. I can already hear the troll chorus of, 'Yeah, right.' But most of what I say is verifiable." Melngailis also claimed that Bad Vegan portrays her very close bond with her now former staff, adding that, "Intentionally harming them is just about the last thing I'd have done. The good people who've worked at the business back then were right to be devastated and angry. It was as if I'd abandoned them, which, in effect, I did." She then added, "There was no actual gun to my head, so it will be said that of course I had a choice. I get that. However, the response that I must be crazy and or stupid is an easy reductive one. I'm not stupid and I'm not crazy. I am humiliated and shamed by all the damage caused, but I've been working to rebuild a strong foundation of self-reliance and self-awareness." As for the touching part that suggests that Melngailis might actually be telling the truth, comes as she strongly feels like she has not fully compensated victims for her actions, and plans to do just that. Melngailis was quoted saying, "Relieved once payment to her employees went through, but that was just a small part of what remains outstanding. I want to be clear that I'll keep working towards addressing it all, one way or another, eventually." Through her letter published on her website on the 16th of March, she reiterated her main point of making sure victims acquired their retribution by saying, "I last posted on this site over 3 years ago, following my release from Rikers Island. I wrote notes from the other side primarily to say thank you and to express a few things about my time away. I'm writing this now mainly to address one issue about the Netflix documentary Bad Vegan. I'll have more to say and clarify later. It's standard practice, to say nothing of journalistic integrity, that subjects do not get paid for participation in documentaries, at least not the reputable ones. In my case, however, and at my insistence, the producers made an exception so that I could pay the total amount my former employees were owed, amounts that occurred after my disappearance in 2015. Of all the harm and the many debts resulting from my downfall, this portion weighed heaviest." She went on to say, "I think Bad Vegan conveys what anyone that knew me understood, which is that I was very close with so many of the employees over the years, and intentionally harming them is just about the last thing I'd have done. The good people who've worked at the business back then were right to be devastated and angry. It was as if I had abandoned them, which, in effect, I did. There was no actual gun to my head, so it will be said that of course I had a choice. I get that. However, the response that I might be crazy and or stupid is an easy reductive one. I'm not stupid and I'm not crazy. I am humiliated and shamed by all the damage caused, but have been working to rebuild a strong foundation of self-reliance and self-awareness." Melngailis swears that she did not profit from the Netflix documentary Bad Vegan, and Netflix and or the producers have confirmed this. And it is quite common practice that anyone who's been the subject of a reputable documentary or who works in the industry could also confirm the standard practice of not paying subjects. She was surely relieved once the payment went through to make up for the fraud that she contributed to. When asked about that, she said it was just a small part of what remains outstanding. Then she was quoted saying, "I want to be clear that I'll keep working towards addressing it all." What do you think? Was she just a foolish girl in love with a crook? Or is she the ultimate scam artist herself? Comment down below.